This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Bud, here with Data Mike and Moneyball Ross. Boys, we have an episode, more of a news episode today. We do these from time to time and we float them in and out. Today's theme is going to be about kind of like shelf wars, occasion wars, all the things that are going on across different categories inside of the beer and beverage and distribution world. So first up, we are going to talk about THC drinks and some of the stuff that is going on there because we have some really interesting news. Sazerac has actually entered the THC Delta 9, better said Delta 9 Thunderdome. Did you guys see this? That they now have THC gummies, Fireball gummies in the mix as well. I don't know. I mean, it's a whole website, so I don't think that this is an April Fool's or a pre-April Fool's joke, but it's out there in the real world. And I find it interesting that they're doing gummies over doing one of the beverage stuff. But Delta 9 gummies, wholesale inquiries, you got 50 milligrams of THC. You gotta love that. You can even join their club, Mikey, if you want to get in the mix on the Fireball.
Mikey only does 100 milligrams, so this is
the Death Stars.
This is some weak shit right here.
No, I am definitely not in that ballpark. I did see these live in the wild though when I was 2 on-sites ago, and I was like,
"Oh, you did?"
What? Yeah, and I was like, "What is going on here?" But you're right. That's what sparked. I was like, why would they jump right into the gummy when they already have the fluid and the following for the fluid?
Isn't 50 quite high though?
I think that was worth the total package, not the one individual servings. They're 10 milligrams each, so it's the bigger package.
That's a hell of a lot for one gummy.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you eat one of those. I hope you don't have plans for about 4 days.
Well, this brings us into, I mean, what is this? If you're a Sazerac distributor on the beer side and you've got the negotiated GP margin, what's the margins on it? Is it going to be something like $5 or $6 a case, or is it going to be? I mean, the GP on that must be huge if it's 25%.
That was in the portfolio that I where I was at, and trying to think back, and it was not that regulated margin. It was normal THC margin from what I recall.
It was.
Yeah, from what I recall.
That's very interesting to me.
Yep.
Because, if you're in a portfolio with other THC products and you're only offering $5, $6 a case,
you would never compete.
In theory, if you're paying on GP, you're going to get smoked.
Yeah, for sure.
No pun intended.
So that that distributor you're working with is selling this product as well.
Yeah, they had them. Yep.
How's it going?
It was pretty new. When I asked about it, it was pretty new. So too early to tell, but I mean, that's a huge name. But I just don't know personally how well it's going to compete in the gummy form. I mean, because you're basically in most states, you're forcing it to live within a dispensary. If you launch a RTD,
even if it's Delta 9 though, but Delta 9 is different
based. I thought it was Delta 9. Right? Is it Delta 9 based or is it THC based?
I think it's Delta 9 based.
Okay. Well then, yeah. I mean, but how often do you walk into a convenience store and see gummies? Period. My travels around in Delta 9 states, it's always in a liquid form when you're walking into a convenience store, at least. So
confirmed, it is Delta 9.
Yeah, it's just interesting that they would go that route first. Especially, I mean, as we know on this side, and looking at the data, we know that the drinks are outperforming the Delta 9 gummies.
My bank says that if I'm going to bet on Delta 9, knowing that the ban is potentially coming down the pipe from a beverage standpoint, because nobody's really said anything about the food additives, right? I don't think anybody said anything about Delta 9 bans from the food, unless I misunderstand the ban the way that they're describing it at the federal level.
It's a
I
great
wonder if
question.
it's not.
I wonder
I
if
mean,
it's
my
the
understanding
whole
was just Delta 9. Yeah, Delta 9 itself.
I
And
thought it was all Delta 9.
Was it? Okay.
I thought so too. And if you're going down the path, but that way, well, I can just put in the dispensaries if this law passes or it goes into fruition. It's going to get smoked in dispensary because THC production is way cheaper than that of Delta 9.
Well, nobody wants that consumer, as we know from talking to Ian Dominguez and others in the space. That consumer that's going to to THC dispensaries is not looking for a Delta 9 product. They're not the same shopper. It's distinct to different shoppers looking for that. So there's no interest in that product competing in that space.
Especially with a total bag of 50 milligrams. I mean, typically, I know somebody, right? I don't know this firsthand experience.
Oh, I know somebody. Yeah.
Mostly your your edible forms are coming 100 to 200 milligrams per bag, whether they be
It's
10,
cheaper.
100, 10 10s or 10 20s. And yeah, it's super cheap. I mean, at least here in Michigan, allegedly, those bags are about 5, 6, upwards like $10, depending on the sale that's going on. So they're pretty damn cheap for the real stuff. So I don't see people
Deriving THC from hemp is not a cheap process. It requires a heck of a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my thinking here is, I mean, if you think that the law is going to go into place, why would you reputationally risk the brand of Sazerac and Fireball itself on this? Like, why would you roll the dice unless you think that this thing's going to get overturned? To me, that's the interesting piece, is that, why stick your neck out? Why not put it underneath something else? Create a secondary brand, put it underneath a shell company. Why expose yourself to the liability?
It's a great question. And that just got my wheels turning too. Is this the first major spirits or anything Bev Elk, right, that put a brand on it?
That I can remember, that's an actual already existing beverage alcohol brand that I know about, at least.
I mean, Boston Beer has theirs, but that's Canada only. They're not in the States. We all know Tilray and what they
Tilray beer.
They haven't put a name on anything yet.
I mean, Tilray, I think. Again, I don't know underneath the surface. I don't have inside knowledge, but I think they've experimented with this to make a move when the time comes.
Right.
I always thought the reason
why not? Right? It's already lined up.
And I know, I've heard rumors that AB's doing something too, but not with their own brand. They're experimenting on the side with partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's getting prepared if the moment presents itself. But this is actually going. This isn't preparing. This is moving.
This is moving. Yep. To that point, I think there's other folks in the space that know more details or are willing to make a bet that the can gets kicked down the curb, or that it changes, or that there's direction in Washington change, because Willie's Remedy, which is a THC beverage, they closed, not opened, they closed a $15 million Series A round in February 2026. So just this year, they closed a Series A led by Left Lane Capital and Second Sight Ventures. And, a little bit about Willie's Remedy is that, it's more of like a liquor style bottle drink, not an RTD. I mean, you could call it RTD, but it's bottled more like a liquor than it is anything else. And they've got an $80 million run rate right now, per the little bit of research that I've done around this. So they are all Delta 9 products, 750 milliliter bottles. And then they've got a couple of 12-ounce packages and some 2-ounce shots as well, too. So to Ross, your point, are there other players that know where this is going to land? Or are people just willing to make an early mover bet that, hey, we're going to make a bet on this, in a brand like Sazerac THC or, Delta 9 or Willie's Remedy, that if we're right, the upside potential is so high, it's worth the risk? I'm not one to make that bet. I think I'm a little more conservative in this world right now. I also don't believe that you need to be a first mover right now, especially if you're a distributor. I don't believe that if you're sitting on the sidelines right now doing nothing, that hurts you in 10 years if everything gets settled and reasonable and layered out, and in 2027, like, we know the rules of the road. Just because you didn't have any in 2026, I think has no bearing on your success by 2030 or 2035 or beyond in this category, as a distributor at least.
I mean, in my head, I picture all of these brands and suppliers lined up at the start line, waiting for the green flag to fly, and like a couple of them are just jumping off the start line, false start wise. I just feel like everybody wants to be first into this category with it's not first into the category, but they want to be the first major brand, and they want to just capture the category early and hold on to it, similar like what we've discussed with like White Claw into the category and High Noon and things like that, and feeling that they probably jumping in as the biggest and one of the first will get them there. So, I mean, you're probably right, though. You don't have to be first. Maybe you just need to be the best. And the best doesn't necessarily mean your product. It meant, branding, marketing, and how you position your brand, and maybe sitting back and kind of watching it all play out, and then aligning yourself strategically would be the best move.
I was distracted there because I was looking at Polymarket to see if there was a bet on it.
Yes. Was there?
I couldn't find one.
No. We can't even use that, so we can't even bet on it. What do you think, Ross? Any value of being first mover here?
I think first mover has advantages. Not what I say, what I do. I mean, if Sazerac's moving, then I suspect that they believe that this law is not going to go into place. Now, whether they have insider knowledge or they're just betting on it, or they're, because again, they're using their own flagship brand, one of their flagship brands, as the horse.
It's the largest liquor in the country. It's the largest market share, biggest selling liquor in the country, I believe.
So they must either have insider knowledge or they think they know. I don't think you make a move like this unless you have reason to do so. I mean, maybe they made the investment already and it's too late to pull back. That's possible too, but it's not. Don't look at what people say. Look at what people do.
Yeah, so a good way to put it. For me, I'm going to sit in a counter to Ross and say that as a distributor, I don't think you're any fear in being, first to market, or you don't have to be. You can wait. You can take your time. If you're a brand owner, maybe there's a bigger value of being first, grabbing the market share, moving forward. At the end of the day, you got a lot of folks, to Mike's point, sitting on the sideline that are big brands that have lots of brand, equity. And how do they take advantage of that brand equity and how they flood into this market once legislation gets settled or the rules of the road do get settled at some point in time in the future? We all believe that will happen. That's one of Mikey's predictions for the year, that, it does get settled this year. I tend to think we're probably going to look at it for another 2 or 3 years before it gets fully settled out. Then as a brand owner, you're probably in the mix. Like, hey, you want to be in the mix now versus later. Man, it's going to be dicey, and all these new folks that come into the game and how that plays out in a big way too.
Yeah, I think that as a distributor, you're in a unique position where you're the conduit to market. So heads you win, tails you win. The only other move is to collect the brands now and in preparation in case it's like an athletic that wins. But again, I think the players that be, the Tilrays, the ABs, they've already have plans for this. Obviously, Sazerac did too. So they have the marketing dollars, they have the chain influence, because we all know it's a chicken and egg problem. Scan data begets scan data, and how do you get scan data? By getting scan data.
Mm-hmm.
So the big boys have relationships from a chain perspective that are more likely to get the placements that are going to drive chain or scan data that's going to lead to more placements. So odds are in favor of the established players making a go here, which you already have as a distributor. You already have relationships with, distribution with. I mean, the only thing you could possibly do here is hedge your bets and collect some of these independents in case one of them really goes. He's one of these new startup brands.
Other news in the alcohol space, we're going to talk about Monster Beverages, their earnings call. So alcohol for Monster Energy, so this would be Monster Brewing, is meaningful down 20% or more in terms of lost sales or rate of change down. They've incurred some impairment charges. Ross, for those of us that are not on the finance, like all the way in the finance game, what's an impairment charge? You write down the asset you purchased, right, on your balance sheet? Is that kind of the deal?
It could be intangible assets, or it's usually a write down. Yeah.
So they wrote that. They wrote down some of the Canarchy investment then off of their balance sheet. So they took an impairment charge related to that. But even in spite of all of that, they had record sales for the quarter, over 2 billion, 17% increase. So again, for the first time in Q4, they crossed the $2 billion threshold in sales. Their earnings per share were up versus forecast, and their operating margin rose to 42.3%. Making $542 million, and their gross profit margin remains strong at 55.5%. So really positive insight. That's an incredible gross margin profit, by the way. So just shows you how much that, they're still investing in the space on the beverage alcohol side. And even in the face of all that, their core business drug them to the top and continue to kick ass and move in the right direction. I found the most interesting thing is that in this, as beverage alcohol struggles for them, their core energy drink is growing, and how may they leverage that in chain retail with regards to shelf sets, right? Do they start looking at trying to take more shelf set space from beverage alcohol and doubling down on that? The Celsius CEO actually made the argument that as alcohol retreats, energy benefits in two ways: on occasion substitution, energy mocktails, and the dirty drink trend, and then also retailers repositioning beer and cooler space on energy, specifically in C-stores where beer is so dominant as well too. Have you guys seen that? I haven't actually seen lost shelf space at scale or any organized fashion in the C-store space in the market. Have you guys seen that or heard about that at all?
I don't think I've seen it as much now, just because I'm not involved in all the shelf sets like I used to be, and out there doing resets day to day. So it's really hard, I think, for me to judge overall. But you have to believe that it's happening.
Yeah.
And going after the adjacent category, it's if energy is growing, in this case, 19%, and their alcohol, at least their alcohol business, was down 22%, and shelf space is not growing, just reallocating. Of course, the ask is going to be there at the retail level to expand out for sure. And when we were reading this in prep for this podcast, I started thinking, like, Monster Energy or Monster Brewing Company on the alcohol side, we just don't see much from their beer side, right? I feel like there's not a whole lot of focus. They have some great breweries. They have some great brands over there, and even building out incentives and stuff. You just don't see a lot, from the old Canarchy book. Cigar City, Oscar Blues, Perrin here in Michigan, things like that. They're great breweries, great brands, and you don't see a whole lot. The focus has mostly been on the FMBs. Yeah. And the majority of their growth has simply come from innovation, right? With the introduction of Beast and then Nasty Beast and going into the tea category and launching new innovations constantly. So I wonder why the lack of focus on the beer side, and it's all on the FMB side.
Well, where's the trend in the industry right now?
Well, of course, but history is
it's not double IPAs.
Correct.
But I guess maybe it is. I mean, Voodoo Ranger, I suppose, is that category.
And I mean what I'm about to say with most respect, but they haven't proven themselves very well in the FMB category.
Well, I was going to take the other side of that and say, I mean, to be down 20% to me is pretty indicative after a major launch. I mean, I was out in the trade and this stuff was stacked everywhere. The Beast, it's going to settle out and find its home.
Yeah,
you wouldn't. Unless you caught fire, which is unusual. We can think of a handful of products that have broken out that way. But even the breakout products are going to have a lull after launch and then kind of catch their second wind and kind of gets that fire. But that doesn't surprise me. I mean, you've declining alcohol trends on the beer side, and you had a launch that you're going up against. It would be shocking to me if they weren't down.
I mean, to me, I look at Mikey's opinion around they don't do much with beer. I think there's twofold. A, most of the leadership has transitioned over to Monster Soda legacy leadership, on the energy drink side. So they're more connected to those brands than they are to like the Cigar City. And I think they lose some of that institutional knowledge around how do we actually leverage a brand like High Life or Jolly Ollie, as we've seen it pronounced before too. But Mike's right though. So High Life is 7.5% alcohol, right? It's already got a funky name to it. It's already got a funky branding to it. Why aren't they leaning into like the voodoo of that part of their category, right? Because they could take High Life like what Ranger has done, pump it full of octane, make different flavors of it, roll it up in 19.2s and have a nice line extension and really kind of play with the brand in creative ways across the marketplace. It's from Florida. You got all these funky things you could do with it in a lot of fun ways. And it's the right alcohol content. They've already got production capabilities for the 19.2s. It's already got the funky can to get started. Like Voodoo really had to re-inspire itself, right? It was a classic IPA, Ranger IPA, and they had to completely re-engineer themselves to become the Voodoo line. But the original or core Voodoo IPA is only 7% alcohol. It's everything else they've done to tweak it, play with it, and have some fun with it that has completely exposed and exploded the brand in new ways. So I think Mikey's onto something there. I think one of our clients who's a listener might feel the same way as well.
Yeah, it's just interesting because High Life is a great beer, and I don't know if it resonates as much out where you're on your side of the country, Ross, but at least on this side, it's a great beer and it's a staple for a lot of people. And it had great distribution, great sell through. So I just wonder why some of that. But you're right, Bud. I mean, to take that line, kind of follow in the footsteps of Voodoo, would there be some traction there?
Mm-hmm. You could pop open three new SKUs right away, the classic, and then 3 more, and have a 4-pack or four warriors to go out and see if you can make any inroads in that space. And
don't
really
they have a bigger IPA too, like Alligator Man or something?
Florida Man.
Florida Man.
Florida Man's their Imperial.
Yeah, so they have a higher octane IPA than even that, don't they?
Mm-hmm. I think they do, but I don't know what the octane is on Florida Man. We're going to the Google right now to go ask. It is 9. It is double. You're right.
Yeah,
it's a double IPA.
But I think going back to your New Belgium piece, Voodoo was the Imperial. And then it got turned into what Voodoo is now. Because Ranger was lower octane. I think Ranger always stayed the way it was. Because it's similar in like the Sierra Nevada portfolio, they have Torpedo, which I think is the big one. And then they have a smaller IPA. So I think the analogous would be to take Florida Man and then turn that into Voodoo.
That'd be a good idea too. If anybody wants to go down a fun rabbit hole around like the Florida Man folklore,
I know where you're going with that. It is
all kinds of fun. There's all kinds of fun Florida Man folklore myths out there that are hilarious. It's become a whole thing. There's even a TV show about it that's Florida Man. It's almost like a new version of Darwin Awards, if there was something as new like Darwin Awards. So they could do a lot of fun with that Florida Man branding as well.
Yeah, but would it resonate outside of Florida?
I think it could. Maybe I'm, selfish Floridian now that I find it funny and entertaining, but I think it would as well.
805 is obviously done well outside of the footprint from a Firestone perspective. It started out as just in that zip code or the area code,
mm-hmm.
and it's hard pressed not to find it on tap in Vegas, for example.
I know, you're right. Next big move is RTD Margaritas, Marg Madness, as we are in March. So RTD's Margaritas are now 1.5, marching towards $2 billion segment. They're all high ABVs, plus more, 8% or more are taking shares. Can dominates this. Single serve and 4-packs are dominating. We've got 5 players that make up really the balance of the whole share drivers. Cayman Jack is number 1, owned by Mark Anthony. Then we got Cutwater is growing fast. little ABs, the little 8-ounce cans that could, Mikey, right? The 8-ouncers. And well, now mostly it's sold in 24s, but at one point the little 8-ounce cans that could, and the Ritas, and then Buzzball margaritas as well, which make up the vast majority of Sazerac's margaritas dollars as well. So you guys find, like, I find this is an interesting story because it's more in that, beverage alcohol being successful, tequila, a couple different crossroads all in one place, doing really well. You guys finding yourself drinking more of these, seeing more of these out in the trade? Is this resonating with you guys as well too?
I don't think it fits my cup of tea as far as drinking it. Maybe out for tacos, we go out for Mexican food, have a margarita, it's fun. But I think it really comes back to what's really winning right now. First, high ABV is winning, right? Everything over 8%, taking some share. Cans are winning. But I think the reality of this is it's an understood flavor. Everybody knows what a margarita is. There is no education around it. And two, it associates with fun.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's fun in a can. Everybody's like, hey, let's go have some margs. What? That's fun, right? The margarita is associated with fun. And a lot of the original margarita flavors, they were really hard to push. But now I think with FMBs, RTDs taking the stance that they have, and people really understanding the category for what it is and embracing it, it's I think it's no wonder why margarita is leading the case there.
What I love about the category from an RTD side is that they have backed down the sugar content of, like, when you go to like a, taco place and it's like sugar blast as a margarita, they've moved them more simpler and more, not spirit forward, right? Because not everybody likes to taste the tequila, but they've at least made them simpler and more palatable. I always felt like at the end of the day, like a classic, taco place margarita that they make locally is going to be super sugar forward. And that's really reduced in a way that I've enjoyed these more and enjoyed tequila more and more because we've gotten out of like this giant sugar bomb as well. Now we've got Ross trying to share something. He's
If you gave me 10 minutes, I can probably go get an original bottle unopened of that out of my treasure chest.
I'm telling you, ahead of its time.
Tequila. We could do a whole episode on brands that were ahead of their time. We should do that. That would be fun.
Way ahead of time for sure.
Yeah. No, the margarita thing. I mean, and you think when we really try to dial in the new legal age drinkers that are coming in, right? The next generation, as we think about it, they love flavor. They love big flavor. It's almost like the zero sugar thing has just kind of gone out the window for a lot of them. Big, bold flavors, and margarita really hits that for them. It's not a new flavor. Their parents have probably been drinking margaritas their whole life. Even if their parents don't drink, you probably have a margarita when you go out to dinner, or you're on vacation. So it's familiar and it's fun. The question is, retail accounts don't need 15 different margaritas. They don't even need 5.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be looking for 1 or 2 that really just lead the category. And what's gonna really fall into that top 1 or top 2 brand when it comes to a canned margarita?
Ross, anything before we move on?
No, I think Mike did a good job covering it there.
You did great. Yep.
Next one's all yours.
I mean, me personally, again, I'm not the market, but if we're going to drink margaritas, it's going to be nice, relatively decent tequila and decent, making it ourselves. We only drink margaritas generally in the summer.
Yeah.
And we tend to make them at home, and we, tend to make them nice. Again, I don't want to drink 5 drinks. If I'm going to have a drink or 2, I'd rather make it count and be nice. So, again, I don't know. The ones you rattled off to me didn't sound appealing. Maybe there's room for a higher end version. I don't know. But then the tax regime's high for liquor, so it's you're kind of walled off from that perspective.
Are you in Shanda a tahini rim crew or a salt rim crew, or no salt? Tahini rims are the best.
I love that stuff.
Tahini rims are the best.
A cat just jumped in my window. We don't have a cat, so that just kind of distracted me. But back to what Ross just said, I mean, that's a perfect example of the opposite end of that spectrum. When you said, hey, if I'm only going to have one or two, I want to make it a nice one. I'm going to get a nice tequila and I'm going to make it at home. You know, if I'm going to have one or two, maybe, you know, we're just, hey, let's get some margaritas, a sunny day, or have a taco night or something like that. I'm not going to go buy a bottle of tequila in the mix because I know nobody else is going to drink it. That's going to sit around until it spoils. So to me, I'm going to walk into a convenience store or packaged liquor store and I'm going to buy a couple of cans pre-made. Here's your margarita. No, I'm not sitting on a bottle of tequila and mix that goes, you know, expired. So both sides of it there.
You're right. So let's move on to Beer Purchasers Index, Ross. So Mr. Econ Man. So Purchasers Index is a leading indicator. This is MBWA's Beer Purchasers Index, where what they do is they go out and they survey a group of purchasers in the beer industry, and they're looking to try to see, hey, are you buying more, are you buying less, or the same of any given category across the given long time horizon, or it's month to month, but then Lester Jones at MBWA, chief economist, he strings it all together and puts together an index that is trying to help us leading indicators. So below 50 is contraction territory, above 50 is expansion territory. February, while still soft at index of 39, so contraction territory, it is the first time in 13 months it's better than the same month prior year. So a little bit stronger February this year than there was last year. Below premium is around 50, so pockets of stability. So that would be your value segment for the most part. Imports are improving, but still below the growth threshold. And then craft remains the weakest in this trend as well. Let's look at this from this perspective then. So from BPI is showing positive, right? And we're seeing from our data perspective on who we're working with clients, that seems to be supported from data flow across the clients as well too. So the BPI is leading indicator related to where the kind of sentiment is from a survey perspective. But from a real life perspective, this is a good opportunity for us. And we should do this. I'm kind of feeding these in now and again about a monthly basis. What's the sentiment from the field as you guys are doing goal setting projects and working with the clients? How did February shake out across the client base? And what are clients sad about, happy about, or excited about into March and beyond so far?
It's funny that you asked that because I was just on a goal setting meeting prior to just jumping on here. And so far for most, I won't say for all, but for most, February has been a great month. Well beyond expectation, and in some cases beating last year, which is great, right? And if you didn't have a great February, chances are you had a really good January. So far from what I'm seeing, year-to-date numbers are really close to flat or even above flat, right? Some positive numbers out there, which is great. And it's not one brand, it's not one region, it's not one state, it's the entire industry across our clients that we're seeing growth. And yesterday, Alicia and I were finishing up a call, and I was like, check this out. This is really interesting data because we get to see different companies, sometimes in the same exact area. And to see both companies grow in the same territory was amazing to me. That's a signal of the industry. So, and I don't think it's so much of a rebound story. It's less bad, right? Because what are the comps we're going up against when we look at last year? Or even if we rewind time 3 years, I think that maybe it's a signal of stabilization. It'd be hard to call it growth because of our comps and how far in that hole we already are. But it's on the other side, it's a really, really positive signal so far for the year. And it makes me excited. I got super excited about it. I'm like, this is awesome, right? And the industry is coming back or rebounding slightly. So that's great.
Well, again, I think you nailed it there, which is all of a sudden being flat feels like amazing because you've been beaten down by negative 5-6 trends for the last 18 months. So all of a sudden to be flat feels pretty damn good. And I think the other side of it too is our customer base tends to be up significantly in a profitability perspective. So being flat on volume, you get full leverage value out of that GP per case gap and that GP growth. So I think it's fair to say that last year was disappointing out the gate. But year-over-year comps have been the best we've seen in probably, I would say, 12 months at least. In terms of a more widespread sustained strength.
Mhm.
Now, I think it's worth mentioning there were some regions that were hit by weather early in February that did suffer from a cold perspective. That just areas that are not typically used to cold. But on the whole, it was strong.
For the most part, that's just in the Southeast, right? Southeast was colder than normal. The rest of the country was warmer than average. And that was from a weather perspective. Outperformance in January and February was a tailwind rather than a headwind for the most part of the market for the better part of 45 or, almost all 50 states on balance. So the big takeaway is like, hey, beer purchases index showing positive signs, green shoots as they may be called, and we're seeing that from the closest segment in the data source as well too, and the results that we're seeing in the field when we're working with clients. So I think those are all positive things. Don't go resetting your budgets anytime soon either, because we don't know how long the green shoots may last, and we have to always remember that for the large group of distributors out there, January is probably the 11th smallest month in the year, and February is probably the smallest month in the year. So up, down, otherwise in those 2 months, we'll take the win and the W where we can, but let's not reset any budgets going into.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this is the time of year when you have the time to get yourself resituated for summer. I mean, as a sales rep, this is the time to do it. I mean, it's going to pay dividends during the summer if you get yourself squared away at this time of year where things are slow. And I say slower, I mean, that's the vast majority of the country. There are parts of the country where this is their high season. Specifically, I'm thinking about Florida and Arizona.
Yeah. And I think a lot of those year-to-date numbers too. February is even selling days month. So how I performed in January or in February, there's really no noise coming from a gained or a lost selling day. So it's a really accurate, year versus year. And in January, we lost a day. So far through the year, we're down a whole selling day. We gained that back in March, but still to have a year-to-date selling day down be positive is tremendous growth, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
Last segment for today, AB closes on BeatBox. Their Beyond Beer, business is now the third largest hard beverage supplier across all of beverage alcohol. At the end of the day, like, this product is a whole new product for their portfolio. They're already big in this space. We're going to see more moves across where legal. They're going to move the brand we've already seen that and heard from a couple of clients in a couple of states where they're moving the brand. So that's going to continue to happen where legal and where franchise protection doesn't come into play. A good call out for the distributor owners that are looking at or listening to this. That's how valuable your franchise laws can be, because they make the brands valuable around the agreements and that. So keep that in mind as we go into legislative season, because we're going to be in DC in about another 6 weeks. And then you as a distributor are also thinking about your lobby days or time on the Hill in your local states as well too. So big deal. Other thing too about this is that this pushes a lot of talent out into the marketplace too, right? BeatBox has a ton of talented folks, a big staff and a big team, the better part of like probably 200 to 300 people. They're not moving over. Very few are sticking around with the transition. That's going to push a lot of talent. I've already seen people landing at other FMBs, other businesses that are out there in the space. So it'll be nice to see how they can take their talents into other suppliers that they're working with, and hopefully grow other businesses in other categories the same way they did at BeatBox as well. Anything you guys want to add? I just thought that was a good kind of tie the bow on, because we talk about BeatBox a lot and it does really well, highly profitable, really successful brand, and the regime of the founder leadership is over and it's off to AB.
The only thing I would add to that is if I was the Monster Brewing folks, I'd probably be looking into a couple of these people that have moved on from BeatBox. That would be my only add.
Not a bad idea.
I mean, culturally, BeatBox was already well aligned to AB. I mean, they had a lot of AB people on staff.
Yep.
They had aligned themselves to AB distribution network. So, I mean, this was, I think this was the least surprising thing I've ever seen in the industry. Just in our own experience with dealing with BeatBox personally. And just how many people in the ranks were AB, and then the move to the WODs was pretty clear indication which way the wind was blowing here.
I'm pretty sure on a podcast at some point in time, Mike, myself, both, or you too, Ross, had said like AB is going to buy this brand. Like at some point in time, it's going to happen. If we went through and actually looked at all the transcripts.
Did you notify AB of our sponsorship agreement with BeatBox, and that carried over?
That's fallen on deaf ears. We have not been able to capture any. we have some black box sponsorship, dark money sponsorship dollars that we have to reconfigure around our lack of swag for the remainder of 2026. Will continue until we fill the dark money pot.
Just as long as Good to Grow doesn't get acquired, we'll be in good shape.
Oh, I love it. So as a whole, like, as you're listening to this, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of opportunities. And Ross, you said it in one of the past episodes that just because beverage alcohol is behind or is struggling doesn't mean that you as a distributor or a rep or a team lead has to struggle. Like, you have all these things that are in your portfolio you could take advantage of, that you can be looking to. We are around the corner from Memorial Day. We are already submitting pricing across the country for chain pricing for May. Like, we're already doing that this week and next week. So we're around the corner from being in May. We're around the corner from looking at Memorial Day and planning stuff out like that. So if you have things you want to do in your market, take advantage of them now. Find ways to find those +1 mentalities that Mike talks about all the time. Find ways to partner with suppliers to grow the business that is in the categories that are growing. Energy drink, non-beverage, if you've got those in your territory as well, RTDs, high beverage alcohol, those are all things that are good. If you like what we're doing, continue to like, listen, and subscribe, and share with a friend. This is episode 99, boys. So we'll be on episode 100 the next time you listen to that. We will decide what we do for fun or how we take advantage of that as well. If anybody has any listener ideas and wants to send us their way, they can email us at info@vxptech.com. That's info@vxptech.com. Boys, thanks for another great episode. For all the listeners out in listener land, y'all rock, and cheers.
Cheers.